A doting husband and father mysteriously vanishes.
The plan was he was going to go hunting pretty early, do his duck hunting, come back. He and his wife, it was their 6th wedding anniversary the next day.
He and his wife were scheduled to go and celebrate that anniversary. She was severely distraught.
His family desperate for answers.
There really weren't a whole lot of clues other than the fact that it simply looked like he went duck hunting and he did not return.
They thought maybe he'd fallen out of the boat and maybe he'd hit his head, and they were hoping they would find him alive. Maybe an alligator or several alligators had gotten Michael and they had eaten him.
How would you describe his last moments?
Confused and terrified.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to Lake Seminole, Florida, located 60 miles northwest of Tallahassee. It was here that 31-year-old Mike Williams went duck hunting alone and never returned. As law enforcement launched a massive effort to bring him home, they never could have imagined the stunning direction their investigation would take. As cold winds swept in over Lake Seminole, Mike Williams' family became concerned.
Well, he set out in the morning to go duck hunting and he never returned. So once mid-morning starts rolling around, people started getting alarmed as to where he was.
You know, his wife expected him to come back around noon. They had a big evening. They were going to go celebrate their 6th wedding anniversary, so he was expected to be back pretty soon, and he didn't show up, and that's when she started to get worried.
How reliable was he known to be?
He was very reliable. He was devoted father, devoted husband, hard worker. For him not to show up was a pretty big deal. His wife, Denise, seemed to be very worried. She called her father when he didn't show up. They started calling friends, if maybe he was with them. His best friend, Brian Winchester, and his dad went to all the places that they knew that Mike liked to hunt around Lake Seminole.
Was it normal for Mike to go duck hunting by himself?
It seemed to be unusual that he went by himself because everyone said he typically went with someone. They started searching, and there was a lot of concern.
Every second counted, and they scoured the area for his boat and his truck.
The leading theory was that he had gone out duck hunting and his boat had turned over or something had happened and caused him to fall overboard.
When Brian and his dad went looking, they went to all the spots that they knew he liked to launch his boat from. They found his Bronco and the trailer.
His truck was found on the north side of Lake Seminole. There really weren't a whole lot of clues to it.
They expanded their search, hoping to locate Mike's boat.
It was Brian Winchester that ended up finding it with a friend.
Did they find any clues inside Mike's boat?
There were some strange things about the boat. One was that there were 2 life preservers in it. There was Michael's shotgun was still in its case. The motor had run out. The motor was was on, but it powered out. But the tank was full of gas. That was what kind of got a lot of people wondering what really happened.
That's when alarm turned into panic, and Mike's family notified authorities, who quickly took action.
They started rallying their troops, if you will, and started taking command of the search and what they assumed and hoped would be a rescue operation. The thoughts were that he was on an island or something along those lines, kind of beached and couldn't get back. So everybody was out there looking. They had helicopters for FWC as well as people that live out towards the Lake Seminole area.
But it was tremendously challenging.
Lake Seminole comes out of a river. It's a reservoir, so it's actually created by a dammed up river, and it is very, very large. It actually it starts almost in Georgia and comes down. I mean, it's just a very, very large lake. And of course, there are marshes all around it.
They ended up bringing in cadaver dogs to see if maybe they could find a body somewhere washed on shore.
As the minutes ticked by, the entire community was baffled by his disappearance.
Everybody came together as a community hoping to find him, but the vast majority of thoughts are, how could this possibly happen to Mike Williams? He's such an experienced duck hunter. He knows the rules, he knows the safety aspect, he's trained himself in safety aspects. At one point, he had taught himself how to get out of waders should he fall over and start drowning as a result of having waders on. Mike was extremely experienced. He'd been duck hunting almost all his life.
As day turned into night, the theories became even more ominous.
Maybe an alligator, because there are quite a few alligators there at Lake Seminole, may have possibly gotten him.
It was horrifying because alligators don't eat you whole. They take you to a hiding hole that they have and may feast on the remains for quite some time. So it's a horrifying death.
So the theory was that that's why a body had not been found and things along those lines, because an alligator had taken him.
Little did Mike's family know, it was just the beginning of their long and painful nightmare.
She noticed a man climbing from behind. He pulls out a gun, pokes it in her ribs, trying to force her to listen to him.
For Mike Williams' family, his sudden disappearance while duck hunting left them with sorrow, heartache, and too many unanswered questions.
The fact that they never found a body, did the alligators really get him?
There was no obvious signs of any kind of foul play. By all accounts, he was supposed to have been alone, gone duck hunting alone.
As you investigated this story, what did you learn about Mike Williams?
He was, from all accounts, an all-American kid in high school, married his high school sweetheart. He really came from nothing and made himself into what he was. He earned a six-figure salary as a property appraiser in Tallahassee. They seemed to have an ideal life.
They just had a really close family and was really just basking in the joy of marriage and his newborn daughter.
On the day of his disappearance, Mike and Denise had plans to celebrate their 6th wedding anniversary. But as the weeks went by, his family had to face the devastating reality that he might never be found.
About 6 months later, what ended up happening was a fisherman found his waders and his jacket in the water. And that seemed, for law enforcement and for judges, that seemed to clinch it that Mike was dead.
A memorial service was held in his honor.
It's a hollow feeling usually at those type of memorial services, because you're still wondering, are they going to, is the body going to show up, or is he going to come knocking on the door one day and show up? It's that lingering feeling of doubt that you just don't get closure.
While Denise focused on raising their daughter, lingering doubts remained for Mike's mother.
She would declare he was not eaten by alligators, he's not dead. Can you please help me find my son? She even went as far as buying billboards here in town for saying the same. Had a helpline. She would contact the governor. She would contact Florida Department of Law Enforcement and any other persons and agencies that would listen to try and get their assistance in order to renew the search and try and figure out and open an investigation as to Mike's disappearance.
Why was Mike's mother so convinced that law enforcement needed to keep looking into Mike's disappearance?
It was just motherly instinct. She knew he was not in Lake Seminole. She knew he was not eaten by alligators.
There was a lot of whispers, a lot of concern what really happened to him.
Years went by, and Denise Williams tried to move on.
Denise just started living her life. She started raising her daughter. She dated occasional persons. Eventually, her and Brian Winchester, who was Mike Williams' best friend growing up, eventually ended up getting married.
But years later, the couple grew apart.
Eventually, Denise and Brian became separated, and the marriage kind of sat in limbo. He had moved out, but nothing really formally towards divorce proceedings happened for quite a number of years.
But Denise never could have predicted what would happen when she got into her car one fateful morning. It would change her life forever.
She noticed a man climbing from behind that third row of seats, and she realizes it's Brian, and he gets into the passenger seat. He pulls out a gun, pokes it in her ribs, trying to force her to listen to him.
What did he say to her?
He's upset because she hadn't returned his text messages or won't answer his phone calls. He said he had to do this because he had to get her to listen to him. And he rambles a lot about how he's going to kill himself. He has nothing to live for.
Denise believes she was about to die when Brian reached into the back seat.
Reaches behind that third seat and pulls out a tarp, a spray bottle of bleach, and some sort of tool. And then it really dawns on her that he was going to kill her. His plan was to kill her.
Eventually, Denise talked him down and convinced him to let her go.
She's promising she's not going to tell anybody about this.
But once Denise was free, she quickly reported the attack to police, still fearing for her life.
And he's stuck in your vehicle, and there he was.
He's going to find out that I told, after I promised him over and over and over that I wouldn't worry about me and my daughter and where we're going to live and how we're going to be safe.
So what went through your mind when you heard Brian Winchester had pulled a gun on Denise?
At that point, everybody just basically believed we finally caught the break we needed to figure out what happened to Mike Williams. So it was all hands on deck.
Brian Winchester was arrested and charged with armed kidnapping. Investigators were convinced they were finally going to uncover what had happened to Mike Williams.
Do you think is responsible for Mike's disappearance?
This is a very unique situation because we had Denise Williams, who we really didn't know whether she had any involvement in Mike's disappearance or not.
After Brian Winchester's arrest for kidnapping his estranged wife Denise, detectives wondered if Denise and Brian had something to do with her first husband's disappearance.
Nobody knew what happened to Mike Williams.
From behind bars, Brian Winchester reached out to prosecutors and said he was ready to talk about the day Mike Williams vanished.
And I think the guilt and all the other demons caught up with him. You know, Brian and Denise's relationship falling apart was the trigger. If they had stayed together, we probably would never have gotten the story ever solved.
We negotiated what they call a proffer agreement, which is he would provide us information in exchange for leniency.
And what he revealed was a bombshell.
At some point, did you and Denise become an item, I guess, if you will, prior to 2000?
Yes, sir.
When was that?
When did it start?
Yes, sir.
The date that we used was October 13th, 1997, but there was a lot that led up to that point, a lot of background.
Brian and Denise had been having an affair for 3 years before Mike went missing. They wanted to be together all the time. Denise didn't want a divorce. So for some reason, murder became the solution.
I think it was gradual that the more we were together, the more we wanted to be together. So yes, we eventually started talking about options and ways that we could be together. I'm not going to sit here and say that Denise planned everything and I was just a dumb guy who went along with what she wanted to do. I instigated a lot of it.
And she was not real comfortable about being a divorced mother. Ironically enough, I guess she was okay with being a murderer instead.
Brian told police they enacted an elaborate plot so Denise could collect on Mike's life insurance policy.
Denise received about $1.8 million insurance.
Brian Winchester made a deal with prosecutors and was sentenced to 20 years in prison in exchange for his testimony against Denise. Denise Williams was put on trial for first-degree and conspiracy to commit murder. As her trial unfolded, the courtroom was silent as Brian Winchester took the stand.
He was the star witness. He was the whole case. Brian made it that Denise was a full partner in everything but the actual murder itself, that she was part of the planning, part of the cover-up, and really painted Denise as a conniving wife, unfaithful wife.
When Brian Winchester testified, what did he say was their plan?
They could kill Mike and make it appear to be an accident by taking him duck hunting.
Brian testified once Mike was in the boat, he set their scheme into motion.
Brian then gets Mike to stand up in the boat, and then he is able to knock him overboard. His idea is just to sit down and watch him drown. He says at that point, things started going astray. That Mike was able to get out of his waders and was not, in fact, drowning, and had now clung to a stump, yelling to his friend, "Help me, help me, help me."
I had my gun in the boat. And, so I loaded my gun, and I made 1 or 2 circles around, and I ended up circling closer towards him, and he was in the water, and as I passed by, I shot him.
Where did you shoot him?
In the head.
How would you describe Mike Williams' last moments alive?
Confused and terrified. He's literally gone out thinking, hey, it's my anniversary, I've got this great baby at the house. My life couldn't be any better. I'm out here duck hunting. I got a great wife that's gonna let me go duck hunting on the morning of our anniversary. And the next thing you know, Mike's looking down the barrel of a shotgun as it goes off.
It's horrifying. Here you are with your best friend, your lifelong friend. This is somebody that you've hunted with and palled with, and y'all's wives have all been close. And all of a sudden, and you see him come up with a gun. And you're screaming for help. It just had to be a nightmare.
According to Brian, he buried Mike's body in a dry lake bed.
And he ends up showing law enforcement where Mike was buried.
And now the fate of Denise Williams was in the hands of the jury. At the end of her trial, Denise Williams was convicted for orchestrating her husband Mike Williams' murder. She was sentenced to life in prison. A year later, she filed an appeal and her conviction was reversed, but the charge for conspiracy to commit murder was upheld. She was resentenced to 30 years behind bars. And now, it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. Statistics show a correlation between infidelity and violence. In extreme situations, that violence may escalate into a crime of passion, or in this case, a calculated murder. Experts say warning signs of infidelity include changes in behavior or appearance, lack of intimacy, and unusual financial transactions. If you experience intimate partner violence or fear for your safety, reach out to local law enforcement or contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe. A teenage girl vanishes in broad daylight.
They said, well, don't worry about it. 19-year-olds run away all the time. They come back soon.
What convinced her family that she was in trouble?
Shannon was not the kind of girl that would just run away.
A chilling call confirmed their worst fears.
They had some kind of memento of her that they were going to leave to sort of show that they were credible.
Why were investigators so frustrated?
There was just nothing that would lead to an arrest.
Would they ever find out the truth behind what happened to Shannon?
There was no DNA, there was no crime scene, there was no body.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to Atlanta, Georgia. The city became the backdrop of a terrifying mystery when a college student vanished while on a break from her part-time job. Investigators hoped that a tip from the most shocking of sources would be the key to finding the missing student. It was early morning on Saturday, March 26th. Instead of sleeping in like most college kids her age, 19-year-old Shannon Melindy was awake and getting ready for a long day at work.
She was a student at Emory University, and she was working part-time at the softball country club, which was a large complex where generally adult softball teams would play in kind of central DeKalb County.
The club was hosting a softball tournament that day. Shannon arrived on the field at 8:45 a.m.
She was keeping score for the various teams there, and she had planned only to work one shift, but somebody called in sick, and so she said, okay, I'll work it, and she worked the second one.
When the first game ended around noon, Shannon said she was thirsty and was going to quickly run out before the next game began.
She went over across the street to get a soft drink at a gas station, and that's the last anyone ever saw of her.
Shannon's boss was annoyed when she didn't come back, but was too busy with the tournament to give it much thought. But later that night, when Shannon didn't show up to her dorm, her roommate and friend, Athena, began to worry.
Well, her roommate, when she didn't come home that night, knew something was wrong.
Athena tried to stay calm, but as the hours passed with no sign of Shannon, she began to panic. By early afternoon the next day, she decided to go looking for her.
And so she contacted friends, and she rode around looking for any sign, and actually found Shannon's car at the gas station across from the softball compound.
The car was unlocked and the keys were in the ignition. Shannon's friends all agreed that they needed to call the police.
They knew that something was wrong. She had a very nice new car that she was very proud of. She wouldn't have just left it there for somebody to steal.
But when officers arrived at the gas station, they seemed a lot less concerned than Shannon's friends had been.
They said, well, don't worry about it. 19-year-olds run away all the time. They come back soon.
One of the officers took a quick peek inside the car, but didn't find anything obvious that suggested a crime had taken place.
They didn't process it like they would have had they known she was a missing person, do things like fingerprints and tape lifts and DNA and stuff like that.
In fact, they did the opposite. The officers told Shannon's roommate to drive the car back to campus, which then contaminated any evidence that might have existed. Police were convinced Shannon had simply run off with friends and would be back.
When you've got an adult who just doesn't come home, for a night, that doesn't always raise a lot of red flags for law enforcement officers.
But it did raise red flags for Shannon's parents, who became worried sick when Athena called to let them know what was going on. What did Shannon's parents do when they heard their daughter was missing?
Well, they immediately got on a plane and flew to Atlanta. They knew that something was wrong. Shannon was not the kind of girl that would just run away or go on a hiatus. She was in touch with her family all the time. She was very close to them and her friends.
When Shannon's parents arrived in Atlanta, they filed a missing persons report and insisted she would never run away.
That she would just up and disappear was the last thing that anybody thought who knew her, especially because of her plans for the future.
19-year-old Shannon had always been an overachiever. She was president of her class in high school and had graduated with honors. She went to Emory to pursue a law degree with the ultimate goal of one day becoming a Supreme Court justice.
She had been working while she was in school at the Carter Center in Atlanta that was founded by President Jimmy Carter. And so she was a person who was on the way to making a mark in the world.
Shannon's family felt as if the police weren't taking her disappearance seriously and decided to take matters into their own hands. Shannon's father, Luis Melindy, who was a famous celebrity photographer, even enlisted the help of some of his A-list clients.
He had some of his photographic clients do PSAs. They put up billboards. It was just a full court press by the family that finally drew the attention of the FBI.
With the FBI now on board, the investigation into Shannon's disappearance became a top priority, and the race was on to find out exactly what had happened to her.
There was one possible lead.
They had some kind of memento of her that they were going to leave to sort of show that they were credible.
Shannon Melindy had vanished in broad daylight, and no one knew why. Investigators learned she had taken a trip for spring break in the weeks before her disappearance.
Friends told the police that there was one possible lead, a man named Chris, who she met on spring break in Florida.
Detectives wondered if they had somehow reunited and run off together. It seemed possible, but when they tracked Chris down, Shannon wasn't with him.
They interviewed the individual and also friends of that individual, and it became clear that he had a good alibi for the time frame, and he was discarded as a suspect.
Investigators then tried to retrace Shannon's last known steps and found themselves back at the softball field where she was working part-time as a scorekeeper.
You could talk to people at the place she was last known to be, which was at the Softball Country Club, and see if people saw her leave or talked to her or said anything about what her plans would be.
Detectives were able to track down everyone who was at the tournament that day. Witness after witness told them the same story.
Several people mentioned that they noticed that the umpire had been distracted by Melindy, who was on the field keeping score, and that it had affected some calls that he had made.
The umpire was 33-year-old Colvin Hinton. He went by the name Butch.
Butch Hinton was, by all accounts, a solid citizen, if you will. He worked at Delta Airlines as a mechanic. He was married. He had children. He owned a home. He even taught Sunday school.
When questioned by investigators, Butch admitted that he had spoken with Shannon, but said he didn't see her after the game because he went straight home to make a phone call.
One of the first things you do is you try to create a timeline of when things happen. So, somebody gets here at this time and leaves here at this time, and anybody that may be involved, you try to get them in a timeline.
Hinton did offer an alibi for the time that Shannon went missing. He said, "I went home and I talked to friends on the phone."
Phone records showed Butch had in fact made a call from his home like he said he did. The time frame would have given him only a short window to have done something to Shannon. Investigators had to move on. There was nothing to tie Butch Hinton to Shannon, and no solid evidence that a crime had even been committed. But everything changed when Emory University's counseling center received an anonymous call.
On April 6th, there was a call placed by someone who wouldn't leave their name or information, saying that they had abducted Shannon Melindy and that they could prove it.
The man insisted that Shannon was alive and well, and that he would call back with a ransom request.
The person said that they had a ring or they had some kind of memento of her that they were going to leave to sort of show that they were credible.
The FBI traced the call to a payphone 20 miles away. There, they discovered a small cloth bag. Inside was a ring wrapped in masking tape that belonged to Shannon.
It just seemed like that was a real lead.
It was now clear to detectives that what Shannon's parents felt and knew all along was right. Shannon Melindy wasn't just missing, she had been abducted.
It just went quiet, and investigators were extremely frustrated. There was just nothing that would lead to an arrest.
Shannon Melindy's distraught parents sat by the phone waiting for the kidnapper to make his next move.
They were expecting to hear from a kidnapper at some point. They felt like that this was something that they could handle because they had somebody who seemed to have a profit motive involved.
But the ransom call never came, and the hope of finding Shannon alive quickly began to fade.
No more calls were received It just went quiet, and investigators were extremely frustrated.
With the case stalling, detectives went back to the one lead they had: softball umpire Butch Hinton.
At some point, the police executed a search warrant, and they searched the house, but they were not able to recover any evidence that really tied Shannon Melendi to the scene, or tied him to Shannon Melendi.
They did believe that he might be a suspect still, so he was never discounted, but there was just nothing that would lead to an arrest.
It kind of goes cold.
The Shannon Melendi case went cold, but it wasn't the last time investigators would hear the name Butch Hinton. Just 6 months later, police were at his home for an unrelated incident.
There was a fire at his home. He said it started upstairs with a household appliance.
He blamed it on a vacuum cleaner or something like that.
Hinton filed an insurance claim for the damage to his house.
Arson investigators determined that it was intentional, and so Hinton was arrested for arson and insurance fraud.
While investigating the arson case, Hinton's neighbor came forward with a chilling detail about the day Shannon disappeared.
On that particular night, they remembered that Hinton had started a large bonfire in his backyard.
Investigators searched the property again, this time using a backhoe to excavate the fire pit. Did they find any evidence?
They were not able to find any human remains, certainly not anything that related and traced back to Shannon.
Even though there was no hard evidence of murder, there were other items collected during the search. Police found wire ties, plastic pants, and 9 rolls of masking tape. None of it was enough to arrest Hinton for murder, but he was sentenced to 9 years for the arson and fraud case. This gave investigators time to work on the murder case against him, and they learned something shocking.
He had a criminal history that involved a previous kidnapping and holding somebody in his basement. And that had happened years before in another state.
It happened in Illinois when Hinton was married to his first wife. Police say he had kidnapped a 14-year-old girl, and his wife had walked in while he was assaulting her.
He pled guilty, but pled insanity. He was sentenced to 6 years. I think he only ended up serving about 2, and that had not originally been known in the investigation.
As Hinton's release date grew closer, investigators knew they needed to find a way to keep him off the streets.
The DA in DeKalb County and the police there decided to take another deep dive into this case.
They had every piece of evidence re-examined, starting with the bag that contained Shannon's ring. The bag was unique, and police learned that it had been manufactured for only one customer, Delta Airlines.
Hinton worked at Delta. The bag that the ring was in was one that was used by Delta Airlines to store small parts, and so there was that connection.
Butch Hinton worked for Delta as a mechanic and had direct access to those bags. And there was more. As they looked at the masking tape that Shannon's ring had been wrapped with, they remembered the rolls of tape they found in Hinton's garage.
They did attempt to match the tape that they found to the tape that was on the ring. It was the same type of tape.
And a closer look at the masking tape around the ring revealed tiny metallic particles that turned out to be traces of copper-nickel alloy, only found in the aviation industry.
And so they were pretty sure that that tape had sometime been in the Delta workplace where Hinton worked. And that was the tie that they made to Hinton, was through his workplace and through that relatively unusual kind of metal alloy that would not be commonly found outside of the airline industry.
With the new evidence tying Butch Hinton to Shannon Melendi, prosecutors felt as if they finally had enough to charge him with first-degree murder. More than 10 years after Shannon Melendi vanished, Butch Hinton went on trial for her murder. Prosecutors knew proving the case wouldn't be easy.
It was completely circumstantial. There was no DNA, there was no crime scene, there was no body.
How hard is it to try a case with no body?
It's quite difficult, and you throw on that the fact that you're doing it years later, when witnesses tend to go away and die, and people's memory gets bad, and evidence has a tendency to get misplaced or lost. It can be very difficult.
The prosecution believed that Hinton followed Shannon after the game, where he grabbed her, took her to his home, and then made the phone call to establish an alibi. Prosecutors believed he then assaulted and killed her. He kept her ring, and after being questioned by police, made the anonymous call to turn the attention away from him. Based on the evidence and his past criminal history, it didn't take long for a jury to find him guilty.
He was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Shannon Melendi. And about 6 months after he was in prison, and after the Georgia Supreme Court had determined that he would not have an appeal, he did confess to abducting, killing, and burning the body of Shannon Melendi.
Shannon's body was never found, and her murder still haunts so many.
A young girl with so much potential, so much life, so many friends, such a close tie to her family, and a future that by any standard would have more than likely ended up as a major contribution. And to have that taken away, I mean, I'm sure that family will never be able to accept that.
Since the murder happened before Florida's life without parole rule, the judge had to allow the possibility of parole in Hinton's sentence. Shannon's family has vowed to be at every hearing to hopefully make sure he never gets out of prison. And now it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. Situational awareness is a tool you can use to help maximize your safety both at day and night. It's crucial to stay alert and aware of your surroundings at all times and have a plan in place for various scenarios in the event of danger. Predators often attack when a victim is alone and vulnerable, so when in public, use the buddy system whenever possible. You may also want to consider taking self-defense classes or carrying a personal safety device for additional protection. And finally, always trust your instincts. If something or someone makes you feel uncomfortable, move quickly to a safe location and seek help from law enforcement. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.